What is happening, baby? Welcome back to the Huddle Chat Sports Network's very own fantasy football huddle. After a brief but absolutely incredible hiatus for the wedding and for the honeymoon, I am back, and we're just in time for those week 5 waiver wire ads this evening. Thank y'all for sticking with us through the hiatus. I promise this episode is going to come out a tad earlier next week. We're getting things back into normal, back into the flow of things, getting you all that information that you need to get the leg up over those other idiots in your fantasy football league. Now, as we prepare for waiver wire night, make sure you smash that like button if you like the content that we talk about today. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscriptions bar as well as that notifications bell, because you have no idea absolutely how much that kind of stuff helps out for me. Tonight, we're going to be cutting through all of the noise that is out there right now. I'm giving you my top targets. We're going to be kind of looking at all of the trending added and dropped players. I'm going to tell you the players that I'm feeling comfortable with adding, the players that I'm feeling comfortable with dropping as well. And we're focusing mainly on players that are owned in under 49% of leagues. And we're trying to help you not just week 5, but the rest of the season as well. Before we get into these waiver wire ads, let's address the elephant in the room and really start talking about the impacts of some of these injuries that happened on Monday Night Football. Because I know Monday night and a lot of injuries happen on Sunday. The fantasy football world has really been shaken to its core over a lot of these significant injuries that have happened to a lot of people's fantasy football rosters this season. This week alone, we saw Malik Nabers suffer a devastating ACL injury. You're looking at James Conner being placed on injured reserve after the foot injury he suffered last week, putting Trey Benson in the starting position that we should have been able to talk about last week, but we unfortunately were not able to be here. Then you got Lamar Jackson. He left the game with a hamstring injury. He was left out with a precaution. This injury is one to be monitoring, but he's looking like he should be good to play this week. And then the big one is going to be Tyreek Hill taking the injury on Monday Night Football, and that's most likely going to end his season and maybe even his career with how bad and devastating the injury really is. But not only are there the injuries discussed, but we really are starting to get into those waiver wires, the first bye weeks of the season. So you're really going to have to start really making important decisions on who to add, who to drop. This week alone, we have the Atlanta Falcons, Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers, and Pittsburgh Steelers on a bye this week. So if you have players from these teams looking like Romeo Doubs, Kenneth Gainwell, Jaylen Warren, and we're going to talk about Kenneth Gainwell here in just a little bit, you're going to definitely need to get some bench depth and really make sure you pick the right starters for this week's upcoming matchups as well. Now, we're going to start talking about the running backs. I'm going to talk about the two immediate needs and the two most interesting running backs that you can get out on the waiver wire this week. And then we're going to talk about some of the bench stashes as well. But like I said, we're going through all the trending up players. Really the main one, the running back position right now is going to be very thin. The main running back that I'm looking at, the one I'm willing to spend the most FAAB on and really try to get that number one waiver priority on this week, is going to be Woody Marks from the Houston Texans, if he wasn't already added in your league. Right now, he's under 38% owned in most fantasy football leagues right now. And like I said, he's my number one priority. He's carving out a serious role in this backfield, and Houston has a decently crowded backfield, but it's really just looking like Woody and Chubb. Sounds like a pretty weird Disney movie going on in the backfield of the Houston Texans right now. But Woody Marks is really going to be the 1A in this situation. He's carved out a bigger role than we expected him to have coming into the season, and you're already looking at if Nick Chubb has any struggles going throughout the remainder of the year. You're looking at Woody Marks only going up from here, and he's already carved out a decent enough role. You're looking at him having a strong long-term hedge to Nick Chubb, and you're looking at him, like I said, being that priority add in week 5. I'd be willing to spend up to 70% of my FAAB on him, especially if you're in need at the running back position. Woody Marks is somebody that's not just going to be a handcuff, just a bench stash. He might mess around and be a top 30 running back by the end of the year, depending on how things go with the Houston Texans as they kind of start to recover from injuries and things like that. But you're looking at Woody Marks. We don't want to add too much hype on it because they just played the Tennessee Titans, but you're looking at him definitely having a big potential this season, and I want to add him if I can. Another priority target is going to be at the running back position, Kendre Miller from the New Orleans Saints. You're looking at him having his most productive rushing output of the 2025 season in week 4. He took 11 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown this last week. You're looking at him showing that burst that Alvin Kamara simply has not had this season. He's looking to carve out a larger workload during the Saints week 5 matchup against the New York Giants, who have allowed a lot of running backs to go crazy this week. They're actually allowing the league worst 6.1 yards per carry this season. He's a high upside flex play that you could instantly put into your lineup right now, and he's a must add as a long-term handcuff. Plus, if you're looking at things like with the New Orleans Saints not being a very reliable, a very good fantasy, a good football team, at some point you're starting to look at, will Alvin Kamara get traded to a team like the Chiefs, a team that may need a running back? Does Alvin Kamara take a non-serious injury, a non-serious ankle injury, and they just decide to shut him down? Because what's the point of continuing to run him for a team that's most likely going to get the #1 draft pick in the NFL draft this year? So you're looking at Kendre Miller. Like I said, he's an upside, a flex play with upside this week, a long-term handcuff, and who knows what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara. Another player at running back I want to watch out for this week is going to be Rachaad White. He's another player that if you're in need, I would definitely go out and spend a little bit on Rachaad White. You're looking at Rachaad White coming off a week where he only played about 27% of snaps through weeks 1 and 3. He finished with very limited touches and yards, and he's been very touchdown dependent. However, you're looking at Bucky Irving coming off that injury, and it looks like it might be like an ankle sprain. He's going to be at least week to week. It means that Rachaad White's fantasy value is immediately going to skyrocket back to his prior workload, making him a must start if you do have him on your bench, and especially if Bucky Irving is confirmed out. But you're looking at, even if Bucky Irving does play, when he does come back from his injury, at what point are you looking at the workload that Bucky Irving is going to be taking versus the load Rachaad White's going to get? Rachaad White's going to have his most valuable weeks over these next few weeks while Bucky Irving is struggling with this, and he's definitely somebody I want to watch out for if he is available in your league. Now, a couple players I want to talk about in this trending list that are going to be kind of fool's gold for me: Kenneth Gainwell from the Eagles, or from the Steelers, and Justice Hill from the Ravens. They're just simply not worth your FAAB at the current moment. Kenneth Gainwell in particular, you're looking at Jaylen Warren. If you were lucky enough to start Kenneth Gainwell this week, you definitely benefited from it. However, Jaylen Warren was fairly close to playing. That's why he did not get marked out of the game until 30 minutes prior to the game. And then you're also looking at them having that week 5 bye week as well. So you're looking at Jaylen Warren having the potential to recover, come back, start in week 6. Now you're looking at what Kenneth Gainwell did. He may have carved himself a larger role, but at the end of the day, he's just simply a high value handcuff at the current moment. Justice Hill, on the other hand, has never been a good fantasy football pickup. I don't know how many years you have to have played fantasy football to understand Justice Hill just simply is not and never will be a good pickup. You're looking at Justice Hill having a good week, maybe once every 7 weeks or so, and then he's absolutely useless until he has that another splash week. It's normally about 2, maybe 3 boom weeks that he has every season, and the rest of that, he doesn't even hit his projection, which is typically very low. Justice Hill, Kenneth Gainwell, I don't feel like spending any FAAB, spending any time, any energy on them. If you have some space, if you're very desperate, take the chance on them. But I believe that that's fool's gold right now. And you're looking at Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols with that Washington Commanders. They're people that you can add if you're in desperation and you need a big ceiling play from one of them too. You're looking at them right now. I'd prefer to have Bill Merritt when it comes to the Washington Commanders backfield, but you're looking at, even with Bill Merritt, Chris Rodriguez, and Jeremy McNichols, right now they're a 3-headed monster, and they have an almost even 3-way split for those 3 running backs. You need guaranteed volume, and this committee right now is a complete toss-up, and you're not really getting guaranteed volume from either of them. You're looking at JCM and you're looking at Chris Rodriguez right now. They're kind of splitting drives, where you're looking at JCM, Bill going to be taking one drive. Then you're looking at Chris Rodriguez going to be taking the second drive. I mean, it's kind of a 10 in one hand, half, or a 6 in one hand, a half a dozen in the other. So I don't really like either one of those running backs unless you are in desperate need. Now let's move on to the quarterback and tight end streamers. For those of you who lost a quarterback to injury or who tired of streaming duds, I have 2 top options for you. Number 1 is going to be Jaxson Dart with what he showed us this last week. You're looking at his ownership being under 36%. The Giants made the quarterback change, which we all expected them to do. Jaxson Dart, he had a decent game. He played 97% of the offensive snaps in week 4, of course. And he's an instant fantasy football option due to his rushing floor. He doesn't have the biggest passing game, and because he is such a running quarterback. It's going to diminish some of the value of these New York Giants pass catchers, which we'll get into that in just a moment. But like I said, he's an instant fantasy option due to his rushing floor. He's the first quarterback since Tim Tebow to have 50-plus rushing yards, 1 passing touchdown, and 1 rushing touchdown in his first start. The Giants' offense is going to struggle without Malik Nabers 100%. It's going to force them to adopt a military college-type style of football play. It's going to have them running mostly on the ground, leaning heavily on Dart's legs, leaning heavily on Cam's scat pack. He had a 15% design rush rate and 11.8% scramble rate without Malik Nabers. So he was running everywhere once Malik Nabers got hurt. It gives him an extremely high fantasy football floor. Jaxson Dart is an absolute must-add, especially if you're running in a 2-quarterback league, if you're a quarterback streaming team, or you just need some quarterback depth. For week 5, he's facing the Saints, who have been one of the worst defenses in the league, so Jaxson Dart might have one of his best performances in the NFL. And you're looking at the Saints having a 30, they're ranked 30th amongst quarterback pressures as well. So they're not really getting much pressure on the quarterback, which they're going to need to do against Jaxson Dart if they really don't, if they stand any chance of really winning this game. But I like Jaxson Dart as well. If Jaxson Dart is not available in your league, I do like Matthew Stafford as well. He's still widely available, and he offers a higher passing floor than most of the streaming options that are out there right now, especially with how you look at how Puka Nacua has been playing. If we redrafted right now, Puka Nacua would probably be the number 1 pick in the fantasy football draft. Moving on to the tight ends, Darren Waller is going to be the priority tight end add coming with the Miami Dolphins. He played really well in his return, and he's going to have to play a huge role, especially now with Tyreek Hill being hurt. He might become an every down player and a top 10 fantasy football tight end. If you don't have a solid tight end right now in your fantasy football team, you're looking at Darren Waller being somebody that I would definitely be looking at adding. He's a priority pickup at tight end. I'm avoiding Jonnu Smith and Evan Ingram. Those are going to be fool's gold. And if you have them on your team, you're good to drop them at the current moment. There are better tight end streamers available for you this year. You're looking at wide receivers now, which is going to be another topic where, with all the injuries, you're really going to have to identify those key matchups. You're really going to have to identify the players that are going to go and make the most out of your options. So you're looking at, of course, let's focus on the 3 main injuries, starting with the Dallas Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb going out last week, taking a little bit of bang up. Outside of George Pickens and Jake Ferguson, there's not a Dallas Cowboys wide receiver pass catcher that I really trust. And I feel the same way about the Miami Dolphins. You're looking at Jalen Waddle. You're looking at Darren Waller being absolutely amazing. But Malik Washington, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, I'm not really feeling it on either of them. Now, on the other hand, the New York Giants, after losing Malik Nabers, I really like. You're looking at Darius Slayton, and you're also going to be looking at Wan'Dale Robinson as well. Darius Slayton is owned in 49% of the league, so he's barely making the list. Really, we're not going to spend much time talking about him because, like I said, he's owned in 49% of leagues, and I honestly would prefer to have Wan'Dale Robinson than Darius Slayton, especially in a PPR format. You're looking at Wan'Dale Robinson being the prime target for a rebound in this offense. He's sporting a 20% target share already, so he's a target hog in this offense. 29.2 first read share, so he's getting looked at on his targets first more than anybody in the team, and he's going to be heavily used against defenses that play too high safety looks. You're looking at spending a decent amount of FAAB on Wan'Dale Robinson. I'd spend more on Wan'Dale than Darius Slayton, like I said. But at the end of the day, like I said, with Jaxson Dart being such a runner, it's going to limit the passing floor of this offense here in the coming weeks. But somebody's going to need to take some of these targets with Malik Nabers being out. And so I'm definitely looking at Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton being somebody that if you need wide receiver help, I'm definitely going to be looking at them as well. Some deep bench stashes you could be looking at right now. Luther Burden for the Bears. Always take a chance on a player who shows immediate promise and can build on it. And then Isaiah Bond from the Cleveland Browns. He should be the number 2 wide receiver behind Jerry Jeudy with the Cedric Tillman injury. And he was a day 2 prospect until some off-the-field issues led him to being undrafted. So you're looking at him having a lot of potential. He's somebody that all the clues are there for you to see this rookie being more involved in his offense and somebody that's going to have a decent floor and a lot of potential upside that you might be able to stash on your bench. I'm looking at Isaiah Bond being somebody that here in the next couple of weeks, maybe even next week, is going to be a top waiver wire ad. So maybe you get ahead of the curve. Now, finishing things off, we're going to be looking at some of the defenses that we're going to be looking at today. Now, when it comes to the defensive streamers, of course, we want to identify teams that are going to be mostly playing at home, teams that are favored to win their games, and the heavier the favorite, the better the chance that you have to want to start this defense. A couple defenses I'm feeling really good about this week: Cardinals versus Titans. Cardinals in Arizona against the Tennessee Titans. For obvious reasons, I'm comfortable starting that defense. The Indianapolis Colts versus the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders have struggled a lot. The Colts defense has been fairly solid, and the Colts are at home. The Los Angeles Rams at home against the San Francisco 49ers, who have been banged up with a ton of injuries. I like the Rams' defensive potential this week. And then you're looking at the Detroit Lions is the only away team I have on this streaming list versus the Cincinnati Bengals. For obvious reasons, we like that Lions defense this week. Now, that's going to do it as far as people that you should be adding this week. Now, talking about players that you're okay to drop this week, of course, we're going to be able to be okay to drop Malik Nabers and Tyreek Hill, unfortunately, with their injuries. Even with an IR spot, unless you're in a dynasty league, there's no reason to hold on to them at this point this year. Looking at Calvin Austin right now, not getting enough usage to be a consistent fantasy option. You're good to drop him right now. Dylan Sampson, everything was looking good for Dylan Sampson until Quinshon Judkins signed that contract. He's a clear backup with no path to significant touches right now outside of multiple injuries. Go ahead and drop him off your roster as well. Sterling Shepard, he's a roster clogger on a bad offense. Go ahead and drop him. Jonnu Smith and Evan Ingram, as I talked about earlier, there are better tight end streaming options available. We all bought into the hype after that week 1, week 2. There was bound to be a couple people we bought into after that for that week 1 performance, and it looks like Jonnu Smith was one of them. Cedric Tillman, Parker Washington are both okay to be dropped as well. Braylon Allen and Tank Bigsby are not getting the touches they need. Braylon Allen took the knee injury this week as well. Those are okay to be dropped also. Kavonte Turpin and Josh Downs are not a part of their core offenses as much as you would like them to be. Josh Downs, I would love to say that there are better days ahead for Josh Downs, but you just cannot trust it. Indiana Jones, when he's been playing and playing well, he's been spreading that ball around a lot. So can't really trust Josh Downs as much as you would like to. So if you need the spot, you need a space, you're definitely okay to drop him. Cooper Kupp, I would like to keep him if I can, but his lack of production and the high ankle sprain is a recipe for a drop as well. Make sure you spend your FAAB wisely. Make sure you pick your waiver wire priorities correctly. Make sure you get the ones that you want first. That way you kind of, if somebody ends up snatching a player that you want, you have the options falling up behind him. Now, that's going to be a do it for it today for the waiver wire episode. Like I said, thank you so much for sticking with us through the hiatus, through the honeymoon, through the wedding. I appreciate y'all so much. I'm here for y'all for the rest of the season. We're going to go ahead and turn everything around the rest of this year if you're in a bad spot, and we're going to keep things going if you're in a good spot. All I know is we're hoisting trophies this year. You're getting a leg up over those other idiots in your fantasy football league, and that's going to be it for me here today in the Fantasy Football Huddle. As much as I love y'all guys, I got to get out of here, but make sure y'all always keep your chin up and your attitude down. I'm going to see y'all next time. Peace out.